Today's inspirational conversation is with Arjun Dhingra, who talks about the different ways that he's built a community within the community. And actually, to help you build out a better social media, he's offered a free download. So if you head to the description, you can grab that now. As always, I'm your host and referral partner out of San Francisco, Shawn Kunkler. Arjun, welcome back. Part two.
Hey, good to see you, brother, and I appreciate you having me back on, man. It means that people liked my jokes the first time, right?
True, and I like your jokes. Otherwise, I wouldn't have invited you
I
back for a round
appreciate you,
two.
brother. I appreciate you.
You know what? I always look forward to just the level of energy and enthusiasm you bring, not
Thanks,
just
man.
to the market, but just personally. It's nice. It's nice to be around that community.
Thanks, man.
So let's kind of dive in. I know so you're on the lending side, but you talk to and engage with a ton of agents and obviously with people on your team. This year, last year, 2024, crazy. We've seen a lot of weird and wild stuff. Let's talk about what didn't work. So people just stop doing that. Let's start
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, no, this is great because it is the norm now, right? Like I think for a lot of people over the last couple of years, a lot of agents and lenders, because we're all together in this, right? It's under the real estate umbrella. So many of us were just kind of waiting, okay, well, we just need that one variable to shift, which was rates. So yeah, they'd gone up. If they just come down a little bit, everything's going to be fine. And then they didn't really. I mean, maybe a little bit, but then they went back up and now they've kind of stayed there. So this is like the new normalized place that we're in. But a lot of people have kind of been paralyzed during that time. So when we talk about and look at what's worked or what didn't work in 2024, even going back to 2023, and that we cannot repeat, I call it AA, which is audacity and arrogance. The audacity to think that you can't be taught anything new, or that you won't evolve or can evolve or you don't need to, and the arrogance to think that you know it all. Like basically just sticking to what got you to this point. And I think that's a fool's errand. Like there's too much disruption. Things are happening too fast. You guys had the lawsuit this year. I mean, like this has been a wild, wild year. We had an election. We've had a lot of uncertainty. I know you and I were talking offline. Like a lot of people are kind of sitting and waiting. The psychology of the buyer is changing, and this market's just been such a head scratcher because rates went up, and historically, whenever they do, prices come down, and then it kind of re-stimulates. But that didn't happen. Rates went up, and prices kept going up. So it was like a double whammy, which hit everyone, and no one's been able to make sense of it. So I get it, and I think before any of that, just let's acknowledge that it was a challenging year, and I think it's really easy for a lot of us to beat ourselves up, and a lot of doubt set in for agents and lenders. Like shit, like you feel really bad about yourself and your business, and then you even start to doubt, am I even good at this? Like I feel like I suck. And I think for everyone listening out there, it's normal to have had those feelings. Don't beat yourself up over it, but I don't want us to dwell there anymore. So, another thing that didn't work, and it's not going to work going forward, is dwelling on the market circumstances. Like the market is the market, and we got to play the hand we're dealt. So this is it. So that being said, what are we going to do going forward? And this may have been where you might have wanted to segue into anyways, but and you talk to people too, Shawn. So you tell me, like, what do you think, right? Like, would you say that that's something that's been holding people back? It's kind of like sitting still and waiting for things to change and hoping, which is not, as we all know, is not a good strategy.
Yeah, well, first of all, you just threw so many amazing little nuggets in that brief little bit that you chatted that there's so much I want to unpack there.
Yeah,
But
let's do it.
yes, 100%. I think, from a client perspective, there's everybody's waiting to see. It's like one shoe dropped, we're waiting for the other one because I think we just culturally we've all been traumatized. We especially in the real estate side of investing is we just keep seeing these radical things happen back to back to back. So I think buyers are just like, hold on, let's take a beat.
Yeah.
I need to figure this out. I don't want to I don't want to make a risky move. And so I personally think that's happening. But I love what you just shared about the AA. I think that's 100% spot on. And then I feel the other thing is it's really hard to not take the wins and losses in the business personally. And I feel like this year we're, especially those people who just drive and push really hard, we're taking it all very personally.
Big time, man.
Like
Big
our
time.
number, like what we normally do for business, it's just not what it is. And so it's hard to not, it's your business. You are the business. So it's hard to separate your identity from that. And so I
Yeah.
just really want to acknowledge that because it's incredibly hard.
And I think, look, a lot of it is tied to it, and you bring up a good point, and that is, and a great thing that I want to touch on there, is that this is, excuse me, your business, and we have to start treating it like a business,
Yeah.
because look, at the end of the day, yes, the natural reaction is to take a lot of it personal. The other thing, though, that we're going to have to acknowledge, and this is where the hard look in the mirror comes in, there are some agents and lenders that actually had a pretty decent year. They had an okay year, right? And this is not to make anyone feel bad, but I want us to explore this a bit in listening to it, because same market, same circumstances for many people, same brokerage, same access to resources, same levels of inventory, same interest rates. Why is it that somebody had a decent year, or I mean, even I just left an event where they were like awarding a guy who was like in the second year in the business, with a big group out in the East Bay, and he's going to be their number one producer this year when the calendar ends. He's only been in the business 2 years.
Amazing.
Like, why is it this guy? He doesn't know anything about a slow market. He's not having these like, "Woe is me" conversations. This guy's on cloud nine. He thinks and he is killing it. But
Crazy.
and he has less experience. But what is it that is making some people do things and others not? And I think that's what we got to stop and look at, because at the end of the day, it is work. There are processes, there's disciplines, there's framework. We all know the things that we need to do. And there's some other things that we can get into on this show today, about what specific tactically we should do in 2025. But why didn't we do it? And that's the real question. Why didn't you do it? Were you lazy? Are you afraid? Are there doubts? Are you just being stubborn? Do you not know how to do it? What is it? You've got to ask yourself, because again, some people actually did really well. So that being said, that means that something's off or something's potentially missing. And again, it's okay. I'm saying all this constructively, not because I want anyone to feel bad, but because I want them to be like, okay, well, what is it? Because that's the thing that we need to tweak. I think, and it's my feeling, the reason why a lot of people didn't is because so much of our momentum and movement in business is predicated on success. And when we have success, then we feel good about ourselves and then we want to do more. But when we're not getting transactions done and things are tighter, we freeze. We know there's other things we need to do. We all know it, right? Shawn, you and I both know. We got to make our calls. We got to do this. We got to prospect. We got to squeeze that sphere. We got to get on, get into community. We got to get into the right rooms, like figure out the opportunities. But sometimes we don't, and it's because I think we don't have a lot of results that are kind of fueling the tank to give us the momentum. So because that's not happening, we freeze. I'll tell you this, for me personally, and I want people to listen to this and then take it and apply it into something, because you got a couple weeks here left, and I don't know when this episode will drop, but Shawn and I are talking here and it's late December. But whatever it is, whenever you hear this, whenever this may happen, just recognize and know that me being vulnerable with you here, transaction-wise, this was one of my worst years too, in 24 years in the business. I knew that was going to be the case when the year started. I knew that was going to be the case, and I accepted it, because I also know at the end of the day, we can't control 100% of the dynamic of whether somebody works with us or not. You're an agent, Shawn, I'm a lender. We will do shit tons of work for people, and apologies for the S-bomb there. We will do a lot of work for people, and at the 11th hour, they'll drop us. You'll take a guy out and show him homes for months, create analysis for him and his wife and this and that, only to get an email at the 11th hour saying, my brother-in-law just got his license and he's going to represent us because we got to keep it in the family. I'm sorry, Shawn, but we appreciate you, right? Like, I mean, and this happens to us in lending all the time. We can't control, ultimately, as much as we like to think, 100% of the way who's going to work with us. But you know what I can control are all the things that I knew I wanted to get done, or at least get started on when there was a bull market during the COVID market, because bull markets kind of expose you for what you don't have, the systems you don't have. It's like there's
For
so much
sure.
water coming on board. Like, God, we got to get better at that. We got to get better at this. But you don't mind because money's just flying and things are getting done still. And then you tell yourself, when things slow down, I'm going to do those things. And everybody's got that. So yeah, when you had a tighter market, this was the time, and it's still going to be the time, because let's be honest, when January 1st, 2025 hits, nothing's going to change. We're going to be in this exact same market. Nothing's going to change at the strike of midnight. So that being said, knowing that this is a landscape, what are the other things that we can be doing that are going to plant that seeds for success? And I get it. This might sound insensitive, and some people are like, dude, I got to pay bills now. So do I. I need a deal right now. Okay, I'd love one too. I got mouths to feed right now. I do as well. I still can't control all of that. And you'll figure out your ways. You'll get through it. I promise you. Those of you listening, if you really want to stick in this career and outlast while other people are quitting and leaving, it's just a cycle, and it's not a matter of if this happens again, but when. So just hang in there and do it. But let's focus on the things. So for me, it was actually my most successful year in terms of implementing all these other things that have been kind of going by the wayside, I just didn't dedicate to. Have they made me any money? No. Will they in the future? I guarantee you they will. And I took the time to do it now. Now, I don't want anyone to think, well, it's too late. I should have done that this year. You can still do it because, like I said, nothing's going to change January 1st. You have some time here. As the market figures itself out, and you need to keep working and grinding, but work on those other things. Find another barometer or a metric that you can say, I got it done, to give yourself some success. Change that psyche around. Give yourself some confidence, because you'll find that mojo will come back into your client interactions, and that energy will transfer over and things will start to shift there. But holding still and feeling paralyzed simply because of the lack of transactions and then doing nothing about it is a sin. If things are tight here and people aren't working, or like Shawn, you and I were talking earlier, right? Like some people just want to wait and see. End of year, they're uncertain about the economy and layoffs, whatever it is. These are all warranted. We can't control them.
Yeah.
And we have to also be sensitive to our clients and partners and people we work with, that those are real things they're feeling. And we got to give them grace and some patience with that, and and some room to breathe on it. But we can get other stuff done. We still have hours in a day. We still have access to resources. I don't call it return on investment. I call it return on effort, ROE. I can make effort of using my thumbs and get in here and do this and send messages and get into podcasts, start my own podcast, create systems, build community, whatever it is. I can do all this stuff. I just got to make the effort. And that return on effort as an exponent or a quotient is so huge, and you can't put a dollar amount on it, because it's going to really set yourself up, because inevitably things will shift in the market. Either something's going to give to create more inventory, there'll be an economic event, a geopolitical event, something will happen that'll bring rates down, and then we're going to have more activity, right? It's not to say that there isn't money to be made right now, but things will change. And when they do, you're not going to have time or the bandwidth to be doing all the things that I'm talking about now. So while you have that time, take advantage of this and do those things. Get smarter, get better yourself, get sharper, refine your craft, do all the things, get into the gym. This is like almost like, think of it as an off season. How are we going to get better? Because it's all part of your business, and you got to be maniacal about that stuff. So that's what I did. That's my hope, that people will listen. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do, I've had these 5 things written down for the last 2 years. Me starting my own podcast was on my list for 3 years. I've got to do it. I was like, last year I was like, no, fuck it. We're going to do it. I already know it's going to be a slower year. I'm going to do it. Yes, it costs money. Yes, it costs resources. But I'm like, this is my time to do it. I need to, and no more excuses. So I implore you all, figure out those things that it was and do it, because you've got time and you have direct control over that. And I promise you'll feel a lot more confident and optimistic and better about yourself if you do those things within your business that you need to do, because we're all business owners and this is how we got to operate.
Dude, I love that. That was amazing. That was the best few minutes I've spent in a long time, and I sincerely appreciate it.
Thanks, Shawn.
Yeah, I at the beginning of it, you make a really great point. Is sometimes you just got to call a spade a spade. You have to acknowledge the reality for what it is, not worse than it is, not better than it is, but
Right.
what is it? Like, what are you actually in right now? And then get to work. And then I think the other incredibly valuable piece and component of that is with what are you comparing? Like, what are you measuring this thing against? Is it just numbers in your bank account, or are there other things that you're measuring against to actually measure your success? Because to your point, and I actually probably lost more deals this year than I have any other year.
Wow.
Because I went with my brother-in-law because he
Yeah.
gave me a fat discount, or I went with so and so. And if you actually listen to a lot of those reasons, it generally goes back to relationship and
Yeah.
spending time with people, building your community. That is a data point that we just don't measure enough. If
Yes.
we actually said, instead of saying, oh, I did, 5, 10 deals, say, did I spend quality time with 25 people and
Yeah.
actually build a relationship? So when that opportunity comes up, when they get off the fence, they they go, hey, you know what, let me reach out to Arjun, I have some questions about lending.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling more ready now. Because you can't rush somebody's process, especially if it's a condition and not an objection, right? It's a
Right.
condition that they need stability in their employment to get a loan. Or they need to save up a specific down payment. That's a condition. There's no way to handle that as an objection. You just have to wait. And and not for nothing, with this downtime, with all these people on the fence, whether it's from the lender perspective of agents working with clients or clients directly,
Yeah.
they're looking for education. They're looking for a community. They're looking for guidance. And if we're just hiding by not spending time with people, answering their questions, engaging them on social media, whatever the platform is, we're missing out. But I
Big
think
time.
more importantly, the more important thread to all of that you've woven into all of this is, how are you showing up? Like, what
Mm-hmm.
is, like, how are you actually showing up? Are you the Debbie Downer who's like, the
No.
market sucks, it's all doom and gloom, there's no
Yeah.
good deals out there? No one wants to work with that person unless you're
No.
Eeyore.
No. Maybe Eeyore, and even he sometimes has a thread of optimism in him. Poor guy. So he still might not like it if you're too Debbie Downer. But look, all of what you're saying applies, and the reason why in the example you gave there, it was a hypothetical, like, oh well, yeah, I'm gonna reach out to Arjuna. Look, I'm gonna tell everybody this, and I want this to really stick. And you write it down and just pin it somewhere, and let this like just stay etched in your brain, because it'll change the way you think about everything going forward. All of us in real estate, lending, in sales for that matter. Shawn, you were running gyms. You've been involved in various businesses. We've all been taught this thing, whether it was from our old man or a mentor or the sales training we went to. You all been taught it's all about who you know. All about who you know. That's what your sphere of influence is. It's all about who you know. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is 100% right. It was all about who you know. There's something in addition to that. That was the game plan up to this year. Okay? Now, 2025 going forward is not about, it's all about who you know. It's about who knows me. Who knows me? Where am I visible? Where can I be found? Where am I showing up? Not how. Shawn brought up a great point, which we can talk about in a bit here. How are you showing up to interactions and dynamics and conversations and meetings? But I'm saying where. You need to be everywhere. This world and this market has disrupted so much so to the point now digitally that no one's going to go with or engage a certain professional or service provider, whether it's a real estate advisor or a mortgage advisor, simply based on the fact that my dad told me to call this person. This next generation and wave of buyers, they're very independent minded. They do their own research, their own reconnaissance. They make their own decisions, and they do it without the counsel of anyone else. Sometimes completely against the counsel of someone else.
True.
Just because you told them to use that person, now that person is actually the first one they crossed off the list. Like, there's no way I'm doing it. I'm going to do this myself. It's different. And how do they do it themselves? They do their own data collection, research, and absorption of content, and come to these decisions based on the things that they see and they follow. And that's right here. It's on these devices. It's forever changed, and it's not going back. Now, for anyone listening to this podcast that says, Arjun, I don't care about that stuff, I'm leaving the business in the next 5 years or less, you're absolutely right. You don't need to care about this. If you are exiting this industry or business in the next 5 years, everything I've set up to this point and going forward, maybe it just helped you kill some time on a commute, because it's nothing more than that. You don't care. But if you plan on being in this business and saying, I matter, I'm actually really effing good at my job, and I have staying power, and I'm going to make a career out of this, I don't care how hard it is, then you have to make those shifts. So that being said now, and recognizing that it's going forward, this is about who knows me, not who do I know. Because imagine if it's about who knows me and the things I'm doing, where I put out content on any platform I can, any place I get an opportunity to, I do it. I'm doing it, and people are recognizing me. And imagine if I could take the market, and the market is this gigantic infinite circle, but my sphere of influence is only this big, and it's important. But imagine having influence in this simply because of credibility and visibility. Now this becomes my fishing pond. The possibilities are endless. You have more business than you know what to do with, or even be able to handle. And those are then the at-bats, the opportunities, the avenues in which you can go down, the success that you're going to have, it's infinite. So I want everyone to really think about it differently. It's all about who knows me. So if I Google myself, if I open up a social media platform, if I look at the Instagram page that I have or my Facebook, would I work with me? Would I learn anything from me? Take some stock and do an inventory. Do a little bit of an audit on yourself. And if those answers are not up to par, and they should never be fully for any of us because we got to keep getting better, right? Then you know where you need to put in the effort and change things and really start applying yourself. Now, for people that are like, okay, well, what am I going to talk about? And I know, Shawn, this is probably something that the audience would like to hear, right? So, okay, I get it, Arjun. You're saying I got to be online. What should I do online? What should I be doing? Look, as stewards of this industry, and you brought this up a little bit, Shawn, when we're talking about like what the picture that's being painted by, say, even the media or the information or the things that consumers think, right? I like to say, like, you've got the media on one side, you've got the consumer base or the audience over here, and we kind of stand in the middle. And the media creates a narrative that's based primarily on negativity, right? Because clicks pay the bills. Doom sells, right? Bad news sells. So if you look at housing information that comes out on a regular basis, Shawn, you'd agree with me, most of it's not very positive. If you read it, you'd be like, I don't know if it's a good idea to buy. The sky might be actually falling, right? People would lead you to believe that. But the truth is, and everyone listening to this who's in real estate knows it, it's not even anywhere near close to being the truth. The housing market cannot invert, guys. We have a 4.5 million person to house imbalance, meaning 4.5 million people across the country have their hand in the air saying, I want a house, and there's no house available for them. And until that somehow flips, and you're going to need to tell me how it flips and convince me of that, there can't be a price crash or an inversion in the market. So knowing that housing is never going out of style, people always need shelter, and we have more demand than we have supply, we can safely, mathematically assume and presume and conclude perhaps that the market is not going to crash. But if we let the media do all the talking, then it's our own fault as stewards of this industry to have to deal with clients and spend the first 3 months of our interaction convincing them that the market's not going to crash before finally getting them to engage. So one big thing that I've done over the last 2 years, I'm going to continue to do it in 2025, and I want you to do it, is what I call news hacking. Take the news. Some of you think, I don't have ideas, I don't know what to talk. You don't need to think of it. Open up any major media publication online or bit of housing news, take the news and say, is this bullshit? Is this real? What's the spin here? What is the application here? What does this mean for you? And take it and translate it. So literally intercept it. We're in the middle, remember? That news is coming. Let me grab it, take it, and present it to the audience that's following me and that will continue to grow and follow me. And let me just put this out and build community this way and explain to people as this like soldier of truth and a steward of the industry, here's why this article on CNBC is false. Here's why I agree with this. Here's why this may be true. Here's what this means for you. Just answer those questions. What does this mean for you? Why should you give a crap? Why should you care? Why is this important? You do that and do that consistently, you're going to turn into your own media news source. And people are going to look to you. They're like, I know the media pointed this thing out today. I want to hear from Shawn because I know Shawn, he always does this. He's going to tell me what this means. And I'm actually used to this. And therefore, that's going to build trust. It's going to build credibility. And then it doesn't matter, Shawn, if I have a brother-in-law that could do this for me cheaper. You're the guy that has instilled so much value by way of addressing things with me informationally that I can't not work with you. It'll cost me too much money to not work with you than I would make saving money working with my inexperienced brother-in-law because he's about to do his first deal and can write out the contract. That's how much it matters. So news hacking is big. I think community marketing is big. Being like the little digital mayor of your community, your street, the coffee shops, the bookstores. Always be talking about these things. Help promote them. Take out your phone. Talk about why you love that bakery. Talk about the fact that you and your wife or you and your husband or you and your partner go strolling down the street and this is one of your favorite things about this neighborhood and why you love living there. Be the digital mayor of your area. Do community marketing. Promote things and support things that are in your community. Be a good steward of not just the industry, but of your area. And you will find that that will resonate with people. Not to mention, create so much goodwill amongst the businesses and the establishments that you promote. And I don't mean you got to get a film crew or anything. You literally just take your phone out. Yeah. One of the biggest deals I did this last year was for a gym owner in Corte Madera. The husband and wife who owned it. I had no idea who they were. They were just doing really cool stuff last summer for kids while we were out with our kids trying to tire them out before bedtime in like a late summer afternoon. Shawn, you know this, right? I mean, like this is just the struggles. And I took out my phone and said, this is so cool. Look at what these guys are doing as a gym. What a cool community event. I tagged the gym location in it and shared it on my stories. A couple of days later, the owner of the gym and his wife, who had a joint husband and wife account, reached out to me personally saying, thank you so much for doing that. That was really cool of you. You can come take a class with us for free on us. I still haven't done it. I haven't gone in for the class yet because I go to my other gym and I just haven't had the time to do it or, go out of my way to get up there. But they started following my page. And what do you know? They're like, oh, he's a mortgage guy. They're seeing the value I put out, all the news hacking I do, all the myths I'm dispelling, all this stuff. It was building credibility. And over the span, I was noticing they were liking things, they were engaging in. A month later, a couple months later, they're like, look, we're in the market for a place and we need some help. And we've been following you and we really love what you put out there. Community marketing will work. A few months later, we ended up doing a deal together. And, now I'm connected to their family and we'll probably do many deals together. And it's somebody that I was able to help. Why? Because I did some community marketing. I decided to be just selfless and promote someone else of something cool I saw in an area where I live. I built rapport with them by doing that news hacking that I told you about. And the last thing I'll tell you guys to do and share on social is 3 things again. News hacking, community marketing. The last thing, third thing is storytelling. Stop talking about or posting something about what you just sold and just listed. I know you hear this, but then you're like, well, then what should I do? And then because you don't have an idea, you just keep doing the thing. Instead of telling me that house that you sold on that street, tell me the story behind it. Talk to me about the family that you helped get in there that had lost 5 times last year in the bidding process. And all they wanted was to get into this neighborhood because their kid needs to go to this school and that you helped them. Tell the story. People are drawn in emotionally to stories. They see themselves as characters in your story. They can relate to your story. They might have a friend who would relate and they're like, you got to hear this. Storytelling draws people in. I think it's one of the most effective ways to market. It's not anything new. It's been around for a while. You saw it big this last year. I think it's only going to get bigger next year. Tell the stories about what you're doing. Now, some of you might say, Arjun, I haven't done a transaction in a year. Excuse me. I haven't done a transaction in months. I don't care. Tell the story. If there was a deal you did, it was a year ago, it doesn't matter. There's still a story behind it and it's your deal. You might be newer or part of a team and like, I don't have any. Your team does. Mm-hmm. You can talk about that. You can leverage that. Someone in your office does. You can say that. It's still a story. It's still relevant. You're not lying. You're not being untruthful. It's the truth. It may not be your recent transaction or the one that helped you make your car payment or whatever. That doesn't matter. What's more important is who it helped, right? And the emotional ties to it. So those 3 things, it was a really long answer for you, Shawn, but I hope that was helpful. Those 3 things I would implore everyone to do in 2025 going forward, because it's what I do. And I'm an open book with this stuff. This is what I'm doing. I'm not doing anything different. My foot is firmly on the pedal doing those 3 things: storytelling, news hacking, and community marketing. And then you can do it anywhere. Do it on LinkedIn, do it on Facebook, do it on Instagram, do it on TikTok, do it in your email newsletter, whatever you want to do. But those 3 things are a combination of them, whatever cadence you want to find with it, I feel is how you're going to be hyper relevant and how you're going to ultimately make the market your fishing pond instead of just staying limited to your sphere of influence.
Dude, that's pure gold, man. And I love that your whole point about the news hacking is agents always struggle for content. And
Yeah.
just all you have to do is open up whatever news platform you are looking at, and I guarantee there's going to be an article about something related to the real estate industry, whether it's
Always.
the rates or the national market, the local market. There's always going to be something in there. And not for nothing, the news outlets spend tons of money figuring out how to make a clickable link or a clickable title. And if you just use that same thing and then you put your spin on it, it's brilliant.
Yep.
You're basically leveraging all of their research
That's
for
it.
the, and just inserting your own editorial on top of it. Which, not for nothing, that's why people hire us. They want our professional opinion. They need
They
our
do.
professional opinion to make a decision.
So
So
have one. Yeah.
I think that's it's brilliant. And I've heard you. We had a small intimate event in the city, and
It was
and I
great.
and you were a guest speaker, and I know
Yeah, it
you
was
shared
great.
aspects of this. But it's funny hearing it again. It's inspirational because I obviously see a ton I talk to a bunch of agents, but I also see all of their social feeds, and the ones that are just excelling at a fast pace. It's because they're doing aspects. They're doing either all of this or aspects of this.
Yes. Yep. It will work. You just got to put it again. It's ROE. It's return on effort.
It
Don't worry about
totally
it.
is.
Don't worry about is this going to make me money right now? Like put that out of your head. Just focus on ROE. How much effort am I really putting in? Because the returns will be there.
It's true. And what's really interesting, especially with real estate and having this episode, surprisingly, is I'm right around the 100th episode. Which
Congrats,
is
man. Well
super
done.
cool. Really
Yeah.
excited about that. But the interesting thing with agents, the number one platform agents hang out on is Instagram.
Yes.
And the interesting thing is, it's not buyers and sellers who are reaching out to them. It's other agents in different markets who have somebody moving into that area.
Yes.
And so the value that you're providing is sometimes you're giving that other agent the idea of like, oh, that's actually that's a really good post. I'm going to do my version of that. You're almost creating a sub community indirectly, or I should almost say parallel to the actual group you're trying to serve, which is cool.
It is very cool, yeah. It makes the world a little smaller. But to your point, that agent to agent network, which I know you have as a good agent, is powerful. Having colleagues in other markets that know and trust you simply because they follow you and they value the content you put out and your credibility with them is strong, you're their go-to person. I know a lot of agents that are part of communities I'm in or I get to talk to, and they say their number one referral source is agent to agent network.
100%.
It's not an ad, it's not the billboard in their market, the shopping cart things. If people even still do those, I don't know. I haven't been to a grocery store in a while, but I used to be on some of them. I used to do that. We've all tried it. But look,
We all tried it.
it's the agent to agent network. So don't sleep on
Yeah.
that. Agents, I think for a long time, and I applaud you, Shawn, because that event you talk about, you brought a bunch of agents together, and these were, I mean, like, there were very these were some one percenters in our market that came to
Yeah.
learn and be collaborative and learn from one another. And it was a beautiful event. Great people, great energy, great vibe, just a nice afternoon. But there used to be this hesitation, at least in our market, like I can speak to it here in the Bay Area, because you and I are both here. There was this hesitation of people not wanting to go to things because they didn't want other people to know that they were trying to learn, and they didn't want you copying them. And, they were very like proprietary about their business. I think it's changing in large part due to things that people like you have done, like these types of events and creating a podcast and a forum for people to come on. Like, look, just share stuff. Let's all talk. We can learn from each other. We can help each other. We can network with each other. We can pass deals. And I think the faster everyone kind of evolves and gets less insecure about being around your fellow agent, fellow lenders, the more doors it's going to open, the more opportunities it'll create. And, you won't even look back. You'll be wondering, why didn't I do this earlier? Here I have been focused on trying to go after clients, which is important, and serve them. But I was ignoring this, which is like, this is incredible here, but I just wasn't paying any attention to it because there's so much opportunity and connection that can be made there if I just simply apply myself and show up in those areas. So I would encourage everyone, like, really, really dig into that and take advantage of the fact that Don't say, oh, there's just going to be nothing but agents there. There's no point in me going. That's ridiculous. That's actually the very reason why you should be there, you know,
Yeah.
because that network is powerful. So don't sleep on it.
Yeah, and let's talk about that event a little bit,
Yeah.
because I think people don't realize the value and the layers of the value. So just really quick, I had a property I was prepping to put onto the market, and the week before we went live, I called you, Arjun. I called my really good friend Lauda, who's
Fantastic.
a CMO.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And basically, we did a panel discussion at the property to talk about marketing, and then being on social and the different strategies people can employ. And then what I did was I called probably 20, 25 agents, top performers in the area, and got them all in the same room.
They all
And
showed up.
they all showed up.
Yeah.
And then
Packed house.
there was drinks and snacks, and everybody hung out. A bunch of agents didn't, they knew of each other, but they didn't actually get a chance to meet. So they got a chance to talk and collaborate. And then between you and Lauda, you guys gave just such incredible tools and tidbits and nuggets about how to leverage social media, how to put together a good story, how to position it instead of, oh, here's another bathroom, here's a bedroom, but how do you tell the story? How do you create this narrative? The byproduct was I had 20 plus agents marketing this property to to everybody who's following them, buyers included,
Smart man.
getting massive exposure to the property just by building a community prior to and giving away all of this information as best as possible. It then helps you because people are like, oh, Arjun's actually a really good guy, and he's willing to educate and take the time to get people up to speed. And I have a client who really needs some educating around lending. Let me send them that way. And so on so many levels, it creates goodwill within our community. The funny thing is Nancy, who was one of the attendees strategically, she's now on my team.
Wow.
Because it gave her an opportunity to see how me and Kat interact with each other, how we then interact within the community with lenders and other people, and how we then position properties for our clients. So the amount of targets that we hit from that one event was just, it was incredible. So thank you. Thanks for being a part of that.
No, brother, thank you for including me. It was my honor. And look, I got as much out of it as everybody else did because I love being around people and sharing ideas and that transfer of energy and knowledge. And it was really good. And, you know, I mean, you summarized it great. I don't need to add anything on it. It was a beautiful event, like just a really nice event. And there was so much good stuff shared, exchanged. And look, for you as the host, you marketed your property. You leveraged the audience of 25 other people who all shared where they were. They were all filming on their phones. Here I am today learning the properties being marketed in a soft, indirect way. Yeah. There was great information and value given. The snacks were well above average. So I definitely remember those. And the drinks, that was good. And it was just a nice afternoon. It was a departure from like sitting and doom scrolling or, chasing clients and making calls maybe we don't want to make. Like everybody came, they wanted to get better, they wanted to learn, invest a little bit of time in themselves. It was a free community event. It was fantastic. I look forward to the next one, man. And Lauda was an absolute just monster of a resource. I mean, she's a chief marketing officer, carries so much value. She consults for such high end, like in high functioning companies and groups. Yes. And what she was, I learned a bunch from her. And I've kept in touch with her. It was great. So it was equally a privilege and much of a learning experience for me as it was for anyone else. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it very much goes. It goes to the whole philosophy, which is it's really at the core of this business, the Realtor 180, and my real estate business is a rising tide lifts all ships.
That's right.
And it's like if we can just make everybody around us a little bit better, it just virtue of that, it makes us better. Because we're going to glean from them.
And that's the answer to disruption. The counterpunch to disruption, whether it was a lender in '08 with Dodd-Frank and the great financial recession or financial depression almost, or it's the NAR lawsuit. Like disruption, guys, is not a matter of if it happens, it's a matter of when. Markets go through cycles. They get a little complacent. Maybe there's audacity and arrogance like we talked about at the beginning of this show. Whatever it is, they're going to continually happen. We've dealt with it with QM rules, TRID laws. There's constantly disruption. It creates panic. It's like, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? Some people quit. Some people stay. The counterpunch to disruption every time is just visibility. If you are so valuable that they can't tune you out, if you're so visible that you are always seen, no matter what, you'll always have a job. You'll always have a job. There's no AI that'll replace you, no bot, nothing, because nothing can replace a solid human to human dynamic that is of value, that is of service, and that brings expertise and guidance. There's no robot or language model that can replace that. There just isn't. But for people that don't bring any of that stuff, yes, the robot, the AI, whatever it is, will replace you. That's inevitable. But people who embrace these things and get better and are valuable and visible, they'll always have a job. So just keep that in mind, as things continue to change. It's important.
Yeah, I mean, same page, man. I think, being like seeks like, being around,
Yes.
or be aspirational, hang out with the people you aspire to be like, and just avoid, by the same token, just avoid avoid the negativity, avoid the doomsday, like those people. It's like early on, you mentioned that one guy who's second year into business and just crushing it. Hang out with him. Spend some time with him.
Yeah.
Find that little, like,
Exactly.
because he's hanging out with other people that are on the same level. And then
Totally.
they're hanging out with other people, and that's going to pull you to their level. You're going to just find a level of enthusiasm.
Look, you're the sum of those people you hang out with, right? We've all heard that. You're the sum of the 5 you hang out with.
So
and
true.
who you get into. Look, I don't know, in the last 24 months, it's been a lot of stages I've spoken on or events I've gone to, money I paid, even when it didn't make financial sense, to just sit in the front row because I wanted to be a sponge. And I saw at various masterminds or even events that I've hosted, I'd start to see a lot of the same people. So I got curious. Why does this guy keep coming? I know he's doing well. He just keeps coming. He's always here. This woman, she's at every event. I see her posting about it, and I want to ask her. So I started asking people questions, and the things I figured out were there were 3 common traits amongst all these successful people every time. It's what it came down back to. Number 1, they always get in the room. Whatever they got to do to get in the room, get to that meeting, get to that event, even if it didn't sometimes make sense financially, whatever, that like it was a bit of stress, they just knew that they're, and I recognize this and believe it fully, they know that they're one conversation, one handshake, one soundbite away from everything changing in their career. It's that delicate, literally one. And it all goes different from there, right? And so they know it's about getting in the room. 2, they're just relentless about refining their craft. So not only do they get in the room, they execute and apply what they learned and start to put it in practice. Because you can go, but if you don't do anything, it's like a New Year's resolution. You wrote it down, it felt good, December 30th. 31st, you stuck it in the drawer. January 1st, February 1st, March, I'll get to it. And then it's December 1st of that next year, and you haven't done shit. Right? So they execute, they're relentless about refining their craft. And number 3, they never bitch about the market. Never. Whatever the hand is, the hand is. They don't look back, they don't long for, I wish there was more inventory. I wish rates were lower. No. This is the market, this is the weather. I'm going to dress accordingly and go work. And so those 3 things are huge.
It's such a good, I love the casual, just dressed accordingly and go.
Dress accordingly, right? It's like because look, you gotta tell yourself or say, if you're someone who catches yourself saying "if only," then what are you saying about yourself? Are you saying you can only work and do well when it's sunny outside and there's low rates and lots of inventory? You can only work in a bull market? Because I'm going to be honest with you, and here's something that might shatter your image or pierce the ego a bit. You're not the secret sauce in a market like that. The market is the secret sauce. You're just facilitating 100%. Transactions. Nobody in the COVID market was great. They might have been great managers and great facilitators and great handlers of high speed, high octane transactions working in a fast paced market, but they didn't have to be great agents because it wasn't required of them, right? Yeah. It's now that you figure out whether you're good or not, or who has real staying power, right? So bull markets just kind of reward you for being prepared. It's markets like this where you got to figure it out. So no one was the secret sauce back then, and but again, you got to ask, like, what am I saying about myself? That I can only work when there's low rates? No, I'm actually durable. Like, I can outlast, I can shine. I got to figure it out. That's the attitude we all need to have and have a chip on our shoulder, right? So yeah, it's raining outside. Okay, what do? Well, don't wear white pants and bring your umbrella. Like, go to work, right? Dress accordingly, like adjust and do what you need to do, because there's still a market out there and still people that need to get served. That what we do for a living is never going out of style. That's the cool thing about this. And just knowing when, if you take a deep breath and just step back and recognize, and again, another testament to the sky not falling. People are still going to get married. They're still going to get divorced. They're still going to have sex and have kids. They're still going to have jobs, lose jobs, have to relocate, downsize, upsize. The need for shelter never goes away. And that's the beautiful thing about why this is the great asset class that it is, why it's overperformed above any other asset class, why it will continue to forever in perpetuity, will never change. So if we know that, and know that what we're selling and what we're doing is never going out of style, we can relax and just say, okay, well then all this other stuff is noise. Rates, media, inventory. I still got a job to do, and there's still people out there that need it done. So just let's do it, and stop bitching about it.
Yeah, and that's ownership, right?
Yes.
I mean, if you pass the blame on something else, then you're the victim of the circumstance. But if you're just like, hey, I look outside, it's raining, dress accordingly.
Yeah.
Which on a total sidebar, I in like 5 years from now, I would love to get the phone call if you're like, hey man, I'm writing a book and it's called Dress Accordingly.
Yeah.
Because that would just be a badass name. Because you're always dressed super dapper, so there'd be like a good like sub layer to it.
I can't write it for 5 years because fashion trends need to change, because the homeless look is very much in. Like the biggest billionaires or millionaires in this city look like they fell out of a tree. And so I can't say dress accordingly because I just will never agree with that. It's fine. I respect it. And, I dress up and there's people that don't dress up at all and they make a lot more money than I ever will. And that's totally fine. But I'm definitely of the statute of like, I applaud you. It's Friday and you and I are both wearing collared shirts. There's not many people that are doing this on a Friday, but we do it because, and I think, look, I've said this before and I don't mean to detour on this, but I'll say it really quickly. People say, why do you dress up? And I appreciate that compliment that I always look dapper. I dress up because, look, the old premise of look good, feel good, do good applies.
Sure.
When I look
100%.
good, I feel good. And when I feel good, I will do good. There's an energetic alignment there. But really, honestly, it's out of respect for the people I show up for. For you sitting across the camera on the Zoom or across the table as my client, as my partner, out of respect for this industry, which is so much bigger than I am or ever will be. I'm just a small microcosm in it. It's out of respect. That's why I do it. So, dress accordingly and show up, I tie that back to what we all do for a living. Take some stock in yourself because look, we all go through funks, and I went through a crazy one during COVID. And this is kind of a story, and I recognize you didn't ask me this, Shawn, but I feel like it's relevant. So I'll share it quickly. Like people ask well, how did you meet Ryan Serhant? How did that whole thing happen? And then you brought him out to San Francisco for a couple of events, which were value events for the real estate community, right? I'll tell you, there was some intentionality there, but it happened because of how he's dressed. I was going through a funk like a lot of people because it was just too heavy and too fast paced and just crazy during COVID. And mortgage lenders were doing so many transactions because of purchases and refinances because of historically all-time low rates. Like it was just nuts. We were working 7 days a week, 14-hour days, like just crazy shit. So one day I came into this office during COVID. There's nobody here. And I just sat in the conference room and took my laptop. I'm like, I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to listen. I was eating some Chipotle. I remember it. I just opened up my laptop and turned on YouTube. And there was a vlog from Ryan. And I was like, this guy, reality TV show douchebag, $1 million listing. It's not even a real show, whatever, Like, I didn't even think anything of it, but I just watched it. And something happened and shifted because of how he was dressed. And it was actually an episode of him talking about, like, why he dresses up and why he takes his job seriously. And I was like, you know what? I have all these suits. I always love wearing suits. Why am I, like, letting myself get down simply because there's no meetings or anything? Like, I'm going to wear a suit tomorrow to work. I'm the only guy who's showing up. It's COVID. There's nobody here. But I'm going to wear a suit tomorrow. Everything changed. Like there was this pep in my step, it was this, and I was so inspired. I was like, okay, what else can I do? So I started going down the rabbit hole of listening and watching more of his vlogs. And I said, I'm going to meet this guy and I'm going to bring him out to San Francisco one way. And then he was at an event and I just snuck backstage and went right after him and talked to him and we shook hands and took a selfie together. And a couple months later, I sent him a deposit and signed a very expensive contract and I brought him out here. But take your shot, do your thing, dress accordingly, show up. It matters because it'll change the energy in you and then your whole career can change.
I love that. It's funny. It's funny. You totally reminded me of this. So you and I had met, I don't even know, well over a decade ago,
Well over a decade, yeah.
at a very high-end athletic club where I was the director of membership. And
Yes.
that
And a
was
very good
me.
director. A very good director, I might add.
I
Of
appreciate that.
membership. Thank
I
you.
Part of me being there was that I wanted to surround myself. I wanted to be in the space. Like I wanted to be around the right people as part of it. And then I eventually got into real estate. I had, I think it was my first, I don't know, 3, 4, maybe 5 deals. Every time I closed a transaction, I went and bought a custom suit, and that was my thing. Of And not only that, like I now look at those suits and I'm like, oh yeah, that was this property, that was this property, that was, and there's a real genuine sense of pride
Yes.
associated with
I
each
love it.
of those pieces. And and so that was one thing. That was one way. You mentioned this earlier about, you know, it was regards to basically like anchoring. If you don't have the sales, you don't feel successful, so you don't feel good. But it's like you can actually just put yourself mentally as if you already had that experience, and
Yep.
that is a way for me. So when I put on the suit, I feel good. So
Yes.
when I show up for a client, I know it's weird. It's like I stand different, I feel different, and then I show up
Amazing, right?
differently for the clients.
It
So
is like it's a Superman outfit in its own way. Like you
it
just
totally
change
is.
something, and it's hard to understand until you put one on, or or if if you can identify with this. But yeah, it is a very real thing that you're saying there.
And it's not dissimilar. I know you have a vast martial art experience, as do I. It's the same thing. I remember, training day in and day out. When you put on the uniform, your mindset shifts, and you're like, it's go time. I'm here to do some work,
Yes,
and it's like it does change you. We have uniforms, military have uniforms, policemen have uniforms, firemen have. Everybody has uniforms for a reason,
that's right.
and sometimes it goes back to that. We all hear about it. It's the positive affirmations and wake up and do those positive things. Sometimes just waking up early, putting on something that makes you feel good, and then heading out to the office, it'll shift you. It'll shift your perspective.
Big time, your energy, and that's everything, man. You're so right.
Dude, this was fun. This was, as always, time just rails by when we're chatting. So I certainly appreciate that. And of course, you're welcome back anytime.
Thanks, Shawn. I appreciate you, man, and all you do for our industry, and putting out this podcast and how helpful it is to agents, lenders, and just anyone who's curious about real estate as a career. It's important. So I'm proud to be a part of it in any way I ever can be, man, and look forward to being back with you.
Nice. And if people want to find you, what's the best way for them to hunt you down online?
On Instagram at Arjun Mortgage, and then we have our community, which you can always learn about more by reaching out to me on Instagram, which is the LFG Society. I put it together to create space for entrepreneurs, and there's a lot of real estate people in it, but it's focused on everyone's mental, emotional, and personal growth before the business. And because I know and recognize that unless you are good here and you're good here, this stuff of what like execute, do doesn't mean anything. So we have a
100%.
really, really heavy emphasis on this, and it's very affordable and accessible, which was my goal. I didn't want it to be exclusionary. I wanted it to be very inclusive. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
Thanks, Shawn. See you, brother.